Yes, we finally got the meeting between Obi Wan and Darth Vader in Episode 3. Will we have a rematch? That's another yes, because we know that from the concept art that was shown to us before the series even released. One more thing, of course, that confirms the rematch between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan is simply Kathleen Kennedy. Back when it was announced, she said not only will Obi-Wan and Vader fight in the series, it will be a legendary. Was the Episode 3 duel legendary? I can't put it that way. It was pretty much one-sided. Vader dominated Obi-Wan in every facet, basically. He dominated him in lightsaber skills. He dominated him with the Force. Not much Obi-Wan could have done, honestly, during that time. And as I said in a previous video, I was glad to see Obi-Wan was, not getting the amount of powers he had immediately back. I like that they pulled him back after 10 years of not using anything. And I know many of you mentioned the sequels and how a certain character is super powerful. It's just something that we have to contend with. But I know that Dave Filoni didn't have anything to do with the sequels. And if you have seen Dave Filoni material content, because I think Dave Filoni is much more involved than previously with these projects. Everything is going according to his and kind of Jon Favreau's plan. And they pretty much have an idea of a grounded Star Wars, the same way we saw it in the original trilogy. I mean, people struggled to use the Force, struggled to duel. It wasn't this easy thing that anybody could do. You see The Mandalorian, and it's pretty much hard for anybody to do anything in that series. When Grogu uses the Force in The Mandalorian, he gets exhausted afterwards by just simply using telekinesis a little bit. So Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have this idea of a grounded Star Wars, as I said, or much more realistic Star Wars. Dave Filoni, of course, constantly is being credited in the Obi-Wan series as perhaps just a consultant. But I got some sad news for you guys. So the legendary duel, of course, is coming in Episode 6, I presume, on Mustafar between Obi-Wan and Vader. A much more rejuvenated Obi-Wan, as I believe he will start to train again and kind of reclaim his glory days as a prominent Jedi Master. The sad news in this is that even though the concept art shows us Vader versus Obi-Wan on Mustafar, even though Kathleen Kennedy said it will be a legendary fight in that statement way back in the day when Ewan McGregor came out and everything, the sad news is we know who's gonna win that fight. You know how we know? Well, it is pretty much spoiled in A New Hope. That is officially the first time we see Vader and Obi-Wan fight each other in Episode 4, A New Hope. When Vader meets Obi-Wan, he says, "I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last." Now we know that, of course, at last doesn't mean that they haven't met since Revenge of the Sith. It means that they haven't met since now in the series. After this series, they will presumably not meet for another 9 years, give or take, since between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, there's a 19-year gap. So since the Obi-Wan series takes place 10 years later, 9 years later, they will fight again aboard the Death Star. Alright, so now we know when Vader and Obi-Wan meet again in A New Hope. Well, what does he proceeded with? Vader says, "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." Okay, so there's been a whole lot of interpretations to this line now that we know in the Kenobi series they will fight. The second time around that the concept art shows us it will happen on Mustafar, presumably. There are a couple of ways we can see this. So I think we should start from the most craziest one in my opinion. One of the possibilities that people have been speculating is that Anakin will be redeemed briefly in Episode 6, but then something will make him turn back, and Obi-Wan ultimately will defeat him, showing him that he is still the master and Anakin is the apprentice. Why people have been saying this is that when I left you, I was the learner, now I am the master, insinuating that he left Obi-Wan. We know he left Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith, but he doesn't leave him as a student in the Obi-Wan series unless he briefly converts and becomes Obi-Wan's friend and partner once more, but then leaves him again And this is why the whole notion of when I left you, I was a learner, now I'm the master. I don't think this one it has any credence at all. So that's why I started with that, the craziest one. The most logical one, of course, is that we can always use the out-of-universe explanations by just saying George Lucas made one movie back in the 70s. What Vader said is inconsequential as it pertains to the Obi Wan series and the rematch on Mustafar. But if we take canon into account, Vader did say that. So by him saying that, we can assume two things will happen. When I left you on Mustafar could mean that Vader left Obi-Wan alive on purpose on Mustafar, same as Obi-Wan left Vader on Mustafar alive and didn't kill him, didn't finish the job, as he said. This indicates that Obi-Wan did stand his ground, but perhaps the match was in a draw and nobody won, and that's why he says, when I left you, I was but a learner, knowing that he still wasn't on par with Obi-Wan. Now, in A New Hope, he feels like he is. The other possibility, it's a pretty realistic one. Supposedly, Obi-Wan was very weak in episode 3, but after realizing Leia was now kidnapped and knowing that Vader will take advantage of this, he will take Leia to Mustafar and wait for him. It's a trap, basically. Obi-Wan knows that he will have to fight Vader again on Mustafar and will go on a training spree. He will become what he once was, a great Jedi warrior. This is where Qui-Gon might get involved as well, who knows, helping him with his training. Lightsaber training is a given. Obi-Wan needs to train more in his dueling skills because he was pretty much weak against Vader in episode 3. So after he learns how to fight again, after he learns how to use the Force again, I think in episode 6 he will stand toe-to-toe with Vader and ultimately slightly defeat him again for a second time. This will leave Vader's confidence in shambles. He has lost again to Obi-Wan and just cannot accept that. What we know is that Vader will build his confidence once more, and when he meets him in A New Hope, even though he lost in the Obi-Wan series, he might be just hyping himself up by telling Obi-Wan that even though you beat me 9 years ago, now I am the master because I have supposedly become stronger. I'm leaning towards the side of Obi-Wan getting the best of Darth Vader in this rematch on Mustafar, but realistically I think they will just be at a draw and perhaps just both of them move on. Vader has, released that anger he had for Obi-Wan because he doesn't seem to be fazed in A New Hope that Obi-Wan is still alive. So he simply senses him, goes on to face him, but he isn't that angry about it. At least not as angry as he is in the Obi-Wan series. So that's the sad news. From Vader in A New Hope, we essentially know how the duel will be portrayed in the rematch on Mustafar. Tell me what do you guys think and who do you pick to win in the rematch in episode 6. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video and may the Force be with you. Until then.